She slammed the paper on my porch and said, "You owe 30 years of HOA fees." I stared at her, half laughing. "Ma'am, this house was abandoned for decades. I bought it last month." Karen didn't blink. Her red nails tapped on the paper like she was stamping a death sentence. "The HOA doesn't forget. You're responsible for all past dues since 1974. Behind her, two men in cheap polo shirts stood with clipboards, pretending to look official. I noticed one had a badge that said Community Enforcement. It looked printed on paper. I kept calm. "There's no HOA here. The deed's clean." I checked. Karen smirked, her voice cold. "Then maybe you checked the wrong files. Because we already have an eviction notice ready." "Eviction? For a property I legally bought?" My stomach twisted, but I didn't show it. The mansion behind me was still half under renovation, old wood gleaming where I'd just restored the porch railing. I'd worked every day for weeks. This was my dream project, my chance to rebuild something with my own hands after years of service. I took a slow breath. "Show me the legal documents," I said. She pulled out another paper, but I saw it instantly. The letterhead was wrong. HOA documents don't come signed in pink ink. She caught me noticing. Her smile faltered just for a second. "You can either pay up or deal with consequences." That's when I noticed something else, a car parked across the street, engine running. A man inside holding a camera. Something was off. Really off. I stepped closer. "Who sent you?" Karen stepped back, eyes narrowing. "You'll find out soon enough. We run this neighborhood. People like you don't last long here." I didn't reply. I just smiled. Because she didn't know, I had already installed cameras around the property the night before, and one of them was recording everything. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on the front door. It wasn't even 7 a.m. When I opened it, 3 uniformed men were standing there. One of them flashed a badge that looked oddly shiny. "We're here to enforce an HOA order." "Step outside, sir." Karen stood behind them, arms crossed, smug as ever. She was wearing sunglasses this time, acting like she was directing a crime scene. I rubbed my eyes. "Joe order? There's no HOA here. This property isn't even part of your development." The fake cop, because by now I was almost sure, spoke again louder. "Sir, you are trespassing on HOA-owned land. We're taking this property until your back dues are paid." "Back dues?" I repeated slowly. "Since 1974? Karen smirked. "Glad you remember." One of the men reached for his radio, muttering something like, "Proceeding with removal." I raised a hand. "Hold on. You touch one brick and I'll call the sheriff myself." Karen laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Oh, the sheriff? You mean the same one who's part of our board?" That line hit me like a punch. For a second, I almost believed her. Then I remembered the papers I'd pulled the night before. The real land registry data, sealed and notarized. I'd done my homework, so I smiled back. "Good, then he'll want to see this footage." I turned the phone screen toward her. A live video feed, Karen from last night shoving fake papers onto my door, caught clear as day. Her face went pale. "You're making a big mistake," she hissed. "Maybe," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But it's my property, and I don't back down easy." She turned to her fake cops. "Take him out, now!" The men stepped forward, but before they could move another inch, a black SUV pulled up at the curb. Real law enforcement markings, real uniforms. Karen froze. One of the officers stepped out, eyes sharp. "We got a call about impersonators and trespassing. Everyone put your hands where I can see them." The look on Karen's face was priceless, pure panic mixed with disbelief. And me? I just stood there, arms folded, letting the truth walk up my driveway. Karen's fake officers tried to explain themselves, talking over each other. "We were just following HOA orders," one started, but the real deputy cut him off. "HOA doesn't have law enforcement authority," he said flatly, stepping closer. "So, which one of you geniuses wants to explain this fake badge?" The air grew tense. Karen's smirk was gone now, replaced with that tight, shaking smile people wear when they know they're cornered. I was just doing what's best for the neighborhood," she stammered. "This man is violating property codes." "He's bringing down the value." The deputy turned to me. "Sir, you own this place?" I nodded and handed him the official deed from my folder, freshly signed, notarized, and clean. "Bought it last month. No HOA jurisdiction." I checked twice before closing. He scanned it, then looked at Karen. "Ma'am, this property isn't under your association. You got anything to say about that? Karen's voice dropped. That can't be right. We have archives, records from the 70s. The 70s? I raised a brow. This land wasn't even part of your subdivision back then. You're trying to scam me. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of the fake officers tried to back away toward his car. The deputy caught it instantly. Not so fast. Drop the badge. He hesitated, then unclipped it, placing it on the hood. It looked even cheaper up close. Karen stepped forward, desperate now. You don't understand. We own this lakefront. He can't just come in and... The deputy cut her off again. Ma'am, I suggest you stop talking before I add impersonation and harassment to your list. Her lips quivered, but she didn't say another word. I exhaled slowly, watching them all stand there, these self-appointed rulers of a neighborhood that wasn't even theirs. The deputy leaned closer to me. We'll run their names. If they're impersonating, it's a felony. You did good calling this in. I shook my head slightly. Didn't call. They showed up just in time. He frowned. Then who did? That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text, you're welcome. Keep the cameras rolling. They're bigger than just this HOA. My stomach tightened. Someone else was watching. I stared at the message for a few seconds, trying to make sense of it. Whoever sent that text knew what was happening, maybe even before the real cops arrived. Karen noticed me looking at my phone and squinted suspiciously. What's that? You calling your little lawyer friend? I ignored her and looked toward the black SUV. 2 more officers had arrived and were now speaking quietly with the first deputy. One of them pointed at Karen's fake officers, who looked like they wanted to disappear into thin air. Ma'am, step aside, the deputy said finally. You and your team are being detained for questioning, Karen snapped. You can't arrest me. I am the HOA president. Not for this neighborhood, you're not, he replied coldly. She screamed something about property rights and community standards, but the officers didn't care. They guided her to the curb while I stood on my porch still holding my phone reading that text again and again. Keep the cameras rolling. It wasn't a threat. It sounded like a warning. The deputy walked back toward me. We'll take care of them. You might want to stay inside today. Looks like this wasn't just about some fake HOA, I frowned. What do you mean? He hesitated. We've had similar reports in nearby towns. People showing up pretending to be HOA enforcement, then forcing homeowners to sign over property or pay cash fines. Organized, professional, so this wasn't random. Karen wasn't just being petty. She was part of something bigger. After the police drove off with them, the street went silent again. For the first time in days, I could actually hear the wind off the lake. I walked around back toward the old shed near the dock. The boards were still warped, but there was something else. Fresh footprints in the mud. Not mine. Someone had been there last night. Inside the shed, I found a small metal box tucked under a plank, rusted but still locked, and scratched on the lid, faint but visible, were the words, Property Records, 1974. My heart started to pound. That's when I realized Karen might have been lying about everything, except one thing. Something did start here in 1974. I carried the rusted metal box inside and set it on the kitchen counter. Dust fell off it in clumps like it hadn't been touched in decades. The lock was fragile. One twist with a screwdriver and it snapped open. Inside were old yellow documents, some typed, some handwritten. The top page caught my eye immediately. Lakeview Development, Private Ownership Transfer, 1974. There were signatures, land maps, and a few faded photos stapled to the back. One photo showed the same mansion, my mansion except newer, freshly painted, surrounded by people in formal suits. One man stood at the center, holding papers, smiling proudly. I squinted closer. The man looked familiar. I flipped to the next document and froze. The name printed in bold, Charles D. Lawson, my grandfather. I dropped the page. He'd never told me he owned property out here. The last I heard, he'd sold everything and moved south in the 80s. So this house wasn't just some random deal I stumbled on. It was coming back into the family without me even knowing it. But that also meant Karen's so-called back dues since 1974 were connected to him. I pulled out another folder, labeled Dispute Records. The first few pages were copies of letters, official HOA stationery, threats about property taxes, eviction notices, all addressed to Charles Lawson, and then a note handwritten in pencil at the bottom of the last page. They're not real. Don't trust the board. They want the land under the lake. My stomach tightened. I looked out the window at the calm, glassy water stretching behind the mansion. Beneath that lake lay something Karen and her fake HOA wanted badly enough to risk impersonation charges. And just as that thought hit me, I heard a sound, faint, from the back door. A soft click, then a shadow moved past the window. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the live camera feed. The backyard cameras were dark, static. Someone had cut the power to them. The text buzzed again on my screen. Same unknown number. Told you to keep them rolling. They're coming back tonight. The message hit me like a cold wave. They're coming back tonight. For a few seconds, I just stood there, phone in hand, staring at those words. Outside, the lake looked calm, but something about the stillness felt wrong. Even the birds had gone silent. I double-checked the locks, then went straight to the basement. That's where the power supply for the cameras was installed. When I opened the breaker box, I saw it right away. Wires cleanly cut, not chewed, not frayed. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't random vandalism. It was planned. I rewired what I could, switched to backup batteries, and reconnected the cameras one by one. The feeds flickered back to life. Front porch, clear. Side yard, clear. Dock, clear. But the camera facing the lake still showed static. I was about to head out to check it when I heard a faint engine hum in the distance. Headlights. A white van slowed down near my driveway, idling just long enough for me to catch a partial logo on the side. Lakeside Property Management. The same name printed on Karen's fake notices. I ducked behind the curtain and watched as two silhouettes stepped out. They wore dark jackets, not uniforms this time, but both carried flashlights and tool bags. One of them walked straight toward the lake. The other came up the path toward the shed, the same shed where I'd found that metal box. I hit record on my phone and quietly opened the back door. The boards creaked under my feet, so I moved slow, staying in the shadows. They were whispering. I couldn't hear much, just fragments. Old map, sealed section, tonight before inspection. Then one of them said something that froze me in place. Karen messed up bringing the cops in. The boss wants this done before sunrise. The boss? I leaned slightly to see better, too far. My boot hit a loose nail, snapping it. Both flashlights whipped toward me. Who's there? One shouted. I bolted back toward the house, heart pounding. Behind me, I heard footsteps chasing fast and heavy. I reached the porch just in time to slam the door shut and lock it. They pounded once, twice, and then silence. For a moment, I thought they'd left. But when I checked the camera feed, one of them was still out there, staring directly into the lens. Then he held up a piece of paper to the camera. Big black letters scrawled across it. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. My hands were trembling as I stared at the screen. That message wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Outside, the man stood completely still, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Then, just as suddenly as he'd appeared, he turned and disappeared into the tree line. The van's engine roared to life a minute later, taillights vanishing down the road. Silence. I sat there in the dim kitchen light, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't about HOA dues. This was something older, buried, and I had a feeling that Lake out back was hiding it. The next morning, I drove into town to see if I could dig up any real records on Lakeview development. The county clerk, an older woman named Martha, looked up when I slid the rusted documents across her counter. Where did you find these? She asked, eyes narrowing. In a shed on my property, I said. It's the old Lakefront mansion, bought it last month. Her face went pale. Oh, honey, that land's been in dispute for decades. The development went bankrupt in '75 after some environmental violations. Whole place was condemned and sold off, but some people still think they own parts of it. People like Karen? I asked. Martha nodded slowly. She's part of that old group. Their parents were investors, but there's more. They believed there was something valuable under that lake. A gas deposit, maybe. There were rumors the company hid drilling rights under fake HOA papers. That clicked. They want the land under the lake. I left with a photocopy of the original sale deed, signed by none other than Charles Lawson, my grandfather. It confirmed everything. The land was privately owned and exempt from all HOA jurisdictions. When I got back home, my front gate was open. Someone had been there. I stepped inside cautiously, checking each room. Nothing broken, nothing stolen. But when I entered the living room, I saw it on the wall above the fireplace, written in red spray paint. "You shouldn't have looked." The same static hit my cameras again. Every single feed went black, then my phone buzzed, another text from that unknown number. "They're not done." But neither am I. Check under the dock. Midnight. I stared out toward the dark water where moonlight rippled across the lake. Whoever was texting me wasn't trying to scare me. They were leading me somewhere, and something deep down told me I needed to follow. By midnight, the lake was dead quiet. No wind, no crickets, just that low hum of silence that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. The moonlight stretched silver across the dock as I walked down, flashlight in one hand, phone in the other. The boards creaked under my boots. Every sound felt amplified, like the whole place was listening. The message said, "Check under the dock." I knelt near the edge and shined the light into the water. At first, all I saw was my own reflection, and then something metallic glinting just below the surface. I reached down, fingers brushing against a cold handle. It was wedged tight between two support beams. Took all my strength to pull it loose, a small waterproof case, newer than the 70s junk I'd found earlier. When I flipped it open, there was a flash drive inside and a folded piece of paper sealed in plastic. The note read, "If you're reading this, they know you're a Lawson. The drilling rights were never canceled. They're still active, and they're killing anyone who tries to claim them." My throat went dry. I pocketed the note and started back toward the mansion. But before I reached the top of the hill, I saw headlights. Not one car. 3. They stopped at the end of my driveway, engines rumbling in the night. Doors opened. Karen stepped out first. Her hair was a mess, her wrist still red from where the police had cuffed her earlier. But she was smiling. "Well," she said, voice sharp as a blade, "you really don't know when to quit, do you?" Behind her were two of the same men from the night before, the ones who chased me. But this time they weren't hiding their faces. "Where's the box?" one of them demanded. "What box?" I asked, stalling. Karen laughed. "Don't play dumb, hero. We know you found something. Your grandfather took what was ours, and now you're going to hand it back." I slowly lifted my phone. "Funny thing, Karen, you're on live stream again." Her smile faltered. "You think that matters?" "Oh, it does," I said quietly. "Because this time I sent the feed straight to the sheriff's office." She froze. The men exchanged glances, and right on cue, blue and red lights flickered through the trees, sirens breaking the still night. Karen's voice broke into a scream. "You don't understand. It's not just me. You're all in danger." The deputies pulled up fast, shouting orders, guns drawn. The men ran but didn't get far. Within seconds, they were on the ground, cuffed. Karen, though, she didn't resist. She just stared at the lake, trembling. "They'll come for it." "They always do," she whispered. As they took her away, I looked back at the water. The moon shimmered across its surface, calm again. But that word she said, "they," kept echoing in my head. When I plugged the flash drive into my laptop later, there was only one video file. Grainy, time-stamped 1974. It showed a group of men drilling by the lake at night, until something burst from the ground and the screen went white. Then a voice. Faint, almost a whisper. Lakeview wasn't built on water. It was built to hide what's beneath it. The screen flickered and went black, leaving only the faint hum of my laptop fan in the silence. I sat there frozen, heart pounding, replaying that last whisper in my head. Hide what's beneath it. I tried to rewind the footage, but the file glitched, skipping past the explosion every time. Whoever recorded this didn't want that part easily seen. Still, I managed to pause on one single clear frame. A frame that showed a metallic structure jutting out of the ground, half buried, half submerged, with strange markings across its surface. It didn't look like a pipe or machinery, it looked ancient. Suddenly there was a knock at my door. 3 slow, heavy thuds. I froze. No lights outside. No car in the driveway. Just darkness. For a long moment I didn't move. Then, against every instinct, I opened the door a crack. A man stood there, tall, mid-50s, wearing a sheriff's badge. But it wasn't the deputy from before. His uniform was different, older, faded. "You're Lawson's grandson, right?" he said, voice low and calm. "Yeah." "Who are you?" He looked past me into the house like he already knew what I'd found. "Your grandfather and I tried to stop them once. The people Karen works for. They're not HOA. They're contractors for a private energy firm, one that went underground after the explosion in '74. The one in the video, I said quietly. He nodded. They buried the site under the lake to contain it. But the company never dissolved. They rebranded, hid behind property rights and fake HOAs to keep outsiders away. I glanced toward the lake where the moonlight shimmered faintly over the still surface. "What's under there?" He met my eyes. Something they tried to drill into. Something they couldn't explain. Whatever it is, they've been guarding it for 50 years. Before I could ask more, headlights flashed again outside. Different ones this time, low and wide, moving fast down the dirt road toward us. The sheriff stepped back, hand on his holster. "They found you," he said. "You need to go, now." "Wait, who are you?" I called after him, but he was already moving toward his car. The lights grew closer, brighter. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Get to the lake, now, it's waking up." A low rumble echoed through the ground, distant, like thunder beneath the soil. The floorboards shivered under my feet. I looked toward the lake just as the surface began to ripple. Not from wind, but from something underneath. Whatever was buried there since 1974 was no longer sleeping. The rumble grew louder, deep, guttural, like the earth itself was groaning awake after decades of silence. The moonlight on the water broke apart, waves rippling outward from the center of the lake. I ran down toward the dock, flashlight shaking in my hand. The old planks creaked and swayed as I stepped onto them. The air smelled strange, sharp, metallic like ozone before lightning. A bright light flickered beneath the surface. Not a reflection. Something down there was glowing. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number, it's under the drill site. Don't let them reach it first. Before I could respond, I heard engines again, and louder this time. I turned and saw black SUVs racing down the hill. No logos, no sirens. Just tinted windows and heavy tires crushing gravel. Doors flew open. Men in tactical gear spilled out, flashlights sweeping across the property. Their movements were too fast, too precise. Military or close to it. One of them shouted, "Secure the dock." "He's here somewhere." I ducked behind the shed, heart hammering. They had come for whatever was under that water, and maybe for me too. I peered through a crack in the boards as they set up equipment, metal detectors, cables, even a portable generator. Then one man walked to the end of the dock carrying a small metal cylinder. He tossed it into the water, and within seconds, the glow beneath the surface flared brighter like it was reacting. "Sir, it's active," someone shouted. The man who seemed to be in charge, tall, gray suit under a tactical vest, stepped forward. "Then we proceed now. The Lawson line ends tonight." That name, Lawson. They knew exactly who I was. I crawled backward quietly, pulling out my phone. The camera feed was dead again. They must have jammed the signal. But the flash drive was still in my pocket. Maybe whatever was on it could expose them. If I lived long enough to show anyone, then bang. A gunshot cracked the air. I hit the ground instinctively, covering my head. A voice shouted from the tree line, "Drop the weapon." "Sheriff's Department." It was the same older man from before, the one who'd warned me. Except now he wasn't alone. A full convoy of county vehicles rolled in, sirens wailing, red and blue lights cutting through the night. The men in black scattered instantly. Two jumped into SUVs, tires screeching as they sped off. But one, the leader, stayed behind, staring straight at me across the distance. "You don't know what you're protecting," he yelled over the chaos. "That thing in the lake isn't a treasure, it's a mistake." The sheriff's voice boomed out, "Hands up! Step away from the dock!" For a split second, the leader hesitated, then turned and dove straight into the glowing water. There was a flash, blinding, white-hot, and then silence. The glow faded, the waves stilled, and the lake went dark again. I stumbled toward the edge, coughing from the smoke. The sheriff grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Don't. Whatever's in there, else it's better left buried." I looked out at the now quiet lake, breath ragged. "So what happens now?" He sighed. "Now? We seal it again. And you disappear for a while, son. The people behind this, they won't stop just because one of them didn't come back." As we walked back toward the house, dawn just starting to break, I took one last look at the still surface of the lake. For a moment it looked peaceful, But then just beneath the water, a faint blue glow pulsed once. Like a heartbeat, and I knew it wasn't over.